All right, let's talk about the speed of light. That ultimate speed limit of the universe. But what if I told you we're not just going to talk about what it is? Today, we're diving into a really wild idea, a framework that claims it can explain why light travels at that exact speed, and it does it with nothing but pure geometry. Seriously, this isn't just a physics lesson, this is a whole new way of looking at reality itself. So buckle up.
So let's just jump right in with a pretty out there question. What if reality isn't made of stuff at all? No particles, no tiny little things? What if everything you see, you, me, the stars, all of it, is just a single geometric pattern, just repeating over and over again? It's a huge idea, right? But that's the absolute core of what's called the Universal Field Resonance Framework, or UFRF for short. And that's the perspective we're going to be exploring.
Okay, section 1, a pattern, not particles. So if we want to see how this framework explains the speed of light, we first have to really get our heads around this shift from thinking about particles to thinking about a fundamental pattern.
So here's what makes this whole approach so different. Most of modern physics works from the top down. We see something in an experiment, we get some data, and then we try to build a theory to explain it. Well, UFRF flips that completely on its head. It works from the ground up. It starts with just a few basic geometric rules, these axioms, and then tries to build the entire universe from them, predicting what we ought to find. It's less about fitting the data and more about generating reality from first principles.
All right, section 2, reality's geometric engine. So, okay, a universal pattern. That's a cool idea. But how in the world does a simple pattern create something as rich and complex as our universe? Well, the framework says it all comes down to a kind of geometric engine.
It all kicks off with this idea called the fundamental trinity. Now, this is super important. These are not three different things. The best way to think about it is like a single coin with three sides that all exist at the same time. You've got a contractive aspect, pulling in, an expansive aspect, pushing out, and a neutral point of perfect balance right in the middle. They can't exist without each other, and they're always in perfect balance.
So how does this trinity turn into an engine? This is where it gets really cool. It all happens at the same time, right? The neutral, zero aspect, starts spinning, and it creates a 1D axis, kind of like an axle. That's our electric field, the E. Simultaneously, the expansive and contractive parts rotate in 2D planes around that axis. That creates our magnetic fields, the B. And here's the kicker. Basic geometry, the kind you learn in school, says that a 1D line and a 2D plane have to be perpendicular. It's not a suggestion, it's a rule of the universe. And that geometric lock forces these two motions together into this incredibly stable, self-powering vortex.
And this is the whole shebang. The UFRF claims this E cross B vortex, this little geometric engine, isn't just a neat concept. It claims this is the fundamental building block of everything. A photon of light, it's one of these vortexes. An atom in your hand, a whole bunch of them stabilized in a pattern. It's all just this one single process, repeating at different scales everywhere.
Okay, next up, from geometry to constants. So we've got this engine, but every engine needs an operating manual, right? Rules it has to follow. Now let's look at how this theory connects its abstract geometry to the actual physical numbers that run our universe, including our main target, the speed of light.
All right, before we get into the numbers, we have to wrap our heads around one really key, kind of mind-bending idea. It's called the projection law. And it says that any measurement we take is basically just a shadow. Think about it. You can shine a light on a 3D object and cast a 2D shadow on the wall. That shadow is real. You can measure its height and width. But it's not the full picture, is it? And its shape totally depends on the angle of the light. Well, this law says that our physical constants are like that shadow. Our measurement is real, but it's a projection that depends on our scale as the observer, relative to what we're measuring.
And here is where things get really interesting. Check this out. The UFRF takes one of the most mysterious and important numbers in all of physics, the fine structure constant, and derives it from a surprisingly simple formula based purely on the geometry of that vortex. You see it there, 4 pi cubed plus pi squared plus pi. That formula gives you a pure geometric value of 137.036, but here's the thing. When we go into the lab and measure it, we get a slightly different number, 137.035999.
Now your first thought might be, aha, it's wrong. But according to this framework, that tiny little difference, that's the whole point. It's not an error, it's not a mistake. That difference is the projection effect that the law predicted we would see.
The gap between the pure geometric value and our measured value is the proof in the pudding. It's not a bug, it's a feature.
Okay, that's pretty wild. Deriving a fundamental constant from pure geometry is a huge claim. But what about the big one, the ultimate constant, the speed limit of the entire universe? What does this framework have to say about the speed of light?
Well, here it is. In the UFRF, the speed of light isn't some arbitrary number that just happens to be what it is. It's a geometric necessity. Remember that E cross B vortex we talked about? It's this perfect dance between the electric and magnetic fields, and the speed of light, c, is the one and only speed where that dance is in perfect harmony. It's the sweet spot where the electric field strength equals the magnetic field strength. This creates a perfect impedance match with the vacuum of space itself. It's like having the one key that fits a lock perfectly, allowing a photon, which is just one of these vortexes, to travel through space forever with zero resistance.
And that's why this number, 299,792,458 meters per second, is so significant here. Because in this model, you don't plug that number into your equations. It's not a given. It's an outcome. It's the speed that just falls out of the geometry. It's the speed the vortex has to travel at to keep its internal balance. So the speed of light isn't just a fact about our universe. It's an unavoidable, baked-in consequence of its fundamental geometric structure. All right, section 4, the bigger picture. So let's just step back for a second. If a theory like this is even remotely on the right track, if the constants that run our universe are just outcomes of geometry, what does that mean for, well, everything?
The implications are, honestly, they're huge. First, you have to completely ditch the idea that the universe is made of things. In this picture, there are no solid particles. What we call matter is really just a stable whirlpool, a kind of standing wave pattern in that one universal process. And that deep feeling we all have of being separate individuals, this framework would say that's an illusion, a trick of the light caused by that projection law we talked about. It's just a matter of perspective and scale.
There's a quote from the source material that just nails it. It says, "Reality is process, not things. Separation is illusion of scale projection. Connection is geometric necessity." I mean, what it's suggesting is that at the deepest level, everything is connected. It has to be, because it's all just different expressions of the exact same geometric dance.
So I'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. If all of reality, every single star, every atom, every person, is just one unified geometric process, looking at itself from different perspectives, then what does that make the observer? What does that make you? Thanks for tuning in.